Now, I already told you people, first one's free. Then what I say? I said I will shut that shit down. No exceptions. Now, I don't know what kind of lying assholes you've been dealing with, but I'm a man of my word. First impressions are important. I need you to know me. So, back to it.
Okay. So I'm gonna do this next part kind of slow. I'm still getting used to doing these videos. So I want you all to kind of bear with me, my people. I want you to bear with me. Those of you who are white, who are watching these videos, I ask that you just bear with me. And just adhere to the truth. Bear witness to the truth. Research this stuff. This is stuff that we've already researched. Documentation. Reliable sources of your people who documented these. The next thing I'm going to be getting into is going to be Howard Zinn's book. I believe the title of it is A People's History of America. Something to that effect. I gotta see the title of it when I get home. It's been a minute since I've been in that book. But that is a white man who is recording in his book what has already been recorded in history by your own people. So let's get into it. I'm just going to be reading the highlight portions of my book. Well, not my book, but the book that I have. How White Folks Got So Rich. According to the leading sociologist Joseph R. Feagin, he says, the sum total of the worth of all the black labor stolen by whites through the means of legal slavery, legal segregation, and contemporary racial discrimination is truly staggering, perhaps in the range of $5 to $24 trillion. So if there's no way that I think there is no way that black people will be paid reparations, because so much of it is owed to us, and not just by America, but by any European establishment, European colonial establishment. Okay, I say it like that. Now this next page, where it lists the presidents and the slaves that they owned. Now at this point, this is the only time where we can say the owning of slavery is important, because I like to say that the owning of slaves is not important when it comes to any slave master, any slave owner outside of the presidents, because these presidents are supposed to be the leading example of what America is supposed to represent. And if they don't represent what this country stands for, then that means that they are hypocrites or operating within the spirit of hypocrisy. George Washington owned 350 slaves. Andrew Jackson had 200 slaves. Thomas Jefferson had 200 slaves. James Madison had 106 slaves. James Tyler 75. James Polk 25. Zachary Tyler 150. Ulysses S. Grant 5. James Monroe had 75. Martin Van Buren had 1 slave. William H. Harrison had 11 slaves, and Andrew Johnson had 8 slaves. If you are the leading face of America, and you are doing the opposite of what America stands for, that makes you a hypocrite. Okay? How can you be patriotic when you don't stand on the ideals of what America is supposed to stand for, which is in the Constitution, that all men are created equal? How can all men be created equal if your personal views of any man outside of your race or your color tone, you view him as different. You view him as different. So there's no way that you and him could be created equal. Ralph Wiley wrote this: "Give me free labor of 1 black person for 1 year, I would be a rich man. Give me free labor of 12 black people for 1 year, I would be a very rich man. Give me free labor of millions of black people for 250 years, I would be America." And, those sentiments are true. Okay? And I failed to mention at the very beginning of this video that the title of this next part is called "The Most Profitable Business of All Time." And in this part, we are discussing the black people's role in how black people were used to gain wealth for America. So the next page, the next highlighted portion I have is cotton was the very foundation of the American economy, and it turbo-fueled industrial growth worldwide. Cotton was to the world economy in its era what oil is to the present. Think about that. And a lot of white people know that is true, because the beginnings of America's it's what caused the Civil War. It was part of the reason what caused the Civil War. So when we talk about the Civil War, of course, we're going to include cotton picking Negroes. Okay. The invention of the cotton gin in 1793 sped up cotton production 50-fold, instantly making it much more profitable and desirable. Okay, so we know what happens when something becomes profitable and desirable. More of it has to be made, and with more of them being made, that means the increase of labor has to be increased. The whole world clamored to be reclothed in cotton, and the escalating demand put the black man and woman on the auction block in increasing numbers, just as demand for sugar did generations before. So we were no different than the cotton. We were no different than the cotton that we were picking. We were the exact same. We were viewed no different than the cotton. And I said in another video that we were considered inventory and livestock. We were treated no better than how cattle are treated on these these farms. I'm kind of reluctant to call them farms because they're really not. But I could save that for another video. Enslaved Africans represented 2/3 of a plantation's family's total wealth. Okay, 2/3 of a plantation family's total wealth. With half of the remainder in the land they worked. A plantation family depended on the very labor of the blacks it enslaved for its total income, protection, and survival. So, think about that. Just think about that for a second. Especially the protection and survival part. What about a plantation who wasn't making an income for a while, and they weren't growing cotton? Hypothetically speaking, they still had these slaves. They couldn't get rid of these slaves. They didn't want to get rid of these slaves. So what if that person had bad business with another plantation owner or another business entirely? Those slaves was his protection. He could use his slaves to make up for the cotton that he can't sell. Okay? It's just something to think about. Now check this out. A British economist calculated, should any dire calamity befall the land of cotton, 1,000 of our merchant ships would rot idly in dock. 10,000 mills must stop their busy looms. 2 million mouths would starve for lack of food to feed them. Let that digest. This is how serious cotton was at that time. Now, if we want to put the emphasis on cotton, we got to really think about certain situations, certain things that could go into play, concerning our fellow brothers, sisters, mothers during that time. They had to be hard on them. They had to, and they were. And whenever I'm debating a white person about slavery, this is why I bring up the importance of, it's not the owning of slaves, but it was what was done to those slaves while they were being held captive, while they were still in bondage. Listening to what this British economist said, when you read what he said, you have to take into consideration the things that could have been done in order to maintain. Think about it. You're hungry. You're low on the very thing that is bringing in your total income. You're going to be upset. You're going to be crazy about how fast work has to be done, how accurate, how punctual the product is when it is being shipped. But yeah, just think about that. And I don't think that a lot of these white people have an empathetic bone in their body, because the moment you bring up to them some of these sentiments, they brush it off like it's nothing. They're quick to tell you. They're quick to tell you that everybody has slaves. Everybody owns slaves. But they never do the research, and I think many of them have, but it's a matter of bearing witness to the truth, submitting to that truth that we were done worse than anybody in the history of mankind. We were done far worse. Okay? The mega wealth of the Rothschild banking family was derived from cotton. Okay? Lehman Brothers and their investment banking house began as cotton traders in Alabama. Cotton was the motive for the development of a vast and expanding international web of finance, politics, transportation, and communications, a global network that relied entirely on the forced enslavement of a whole race of people. You have to meditate on that. You have to think about that. Okay? It says, oh man, I get speechless because the words they actually speak for themselves. There's nothing to explain at that point. A global network that relied entirely on the forced enslavement of a whole race of people. Global network. This was worldwide. The entire world benefited off of our blood, literally blood, sweat, and tears. Okay? The geopolitical focus shifted to North America, North Africa, Middle East, where today it remains the preeminent commodity, bringing with it the suffering, misery, and havoc long endured by the people of America and Africa, and now inflicted upon the indigenous people unluckily enough to live on top of the black gold. Okay, and I mean that there's nothing else I can say after reading that. You know, this entire part, you know, it hits the nail on the head. You know, there's no way that you can rebut this information. You have no rebuttal to this information. None whatsoever.
You still there? I just don't know. It seems like you're trying to speak, but you just took a hell of a hit. I just popped your skull so hard, your eyeball just popped out. And it is gross as shit. God, I'll find you. Oh, hell. I can see this is hard on you guys. I am sorry. I truly am. But I did say it. No exceptions.
You watch out, pussies.